News Talk 94.5 WPTI, 96.7 FM WTOB. You're listening to the Wealth Guardian Show with Doug Ray, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. This morning in the studio, you have Garrett Ray and Brice Payne. And today we'd like to talk about common mistakes one might make when choosing a financial advisor. Good morning, Brice.
Good morning, Garrett. Happy weekend to you. How are you doing?
Oh, doing all right. You know, just in the dog days of summer here and ready for a little bit of change in the weather pattern, not going to lie. I like the heat, but this is getting excessive.
Very good. Yep. Well, we've got an interesting show here this morning. We're going to talk about mistakes when choosing a financial advisor. If you don't already have a financial advisor, or maybe you do, and you're wondering what would be the criteria, what should you ask, what should you consider when looking to see which financial advisor would be appropriate for you, we're going to go over some of the mistakes that people make, assumptions that they make, things that they don't ask, those kind of things in today's first and second segment. And of course, we've got the question that we're going to ask each other: better get to know your Wealth Guardian's financial advisor. I haven't told Garrett what this is yet, but but that's okay. We're going to do as we always do, the Wealth Guardian Service Salute to start off with. So Garrett, I'll turn it over to you for that one.
Yes, you know, before every show, we do want to take a moment just to thank our men and women in uniform, our first responders out there in the community. I think we've seen in recent days that it can be a dangerous place out there sometimes, and so we do thank each and every one of you for putting your livelihoods on the line to help us sleep a little better at night, and to the families of those who support those men and women in uniform and those first responders, an extra shout out to you.
You know, we always mention, Garrett, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Sometimes we overlook Coast Guard. We always overlook Space Force inadvertently.
Indeed.
But maybe we need to be including Secret Service in that now as well.
Exactly. Absolutely. I would too.
All right. Well,
sure.
Thank you for that. And here's the question I'm going to ask you, Garrett. And of course, I can ask you, everyone out there, that as well. And then Garrett can throw the question back to me. Garrett, if you weren't living here, where in the U.S. would you prefer to live?
Oh, my goodness. You know, I'm a kind of a Carolina boy at heart. I do have a soft spot for the southeastern coastal part of North Carolina, you know, around Wilmington, Southport, just the general Cape Fear area. My family has the history ties back there. If you go back many, many generations, a lot of the Rays are from that neck of the woods. So just beautiful country and a place that's near and dear to my heart. How about yourself, Brice? Where would you be?
Well, I've now lived in North Carolina more than I've lived in North Carolina now a total of 20 years. Before that, I had always considered Colorado my home. Love Colorado, but I'm done with winters. Don't need winters at all. So I don't know that I would say Colorado, even though that might be where my sport loyalty is. I'd be hard pressed to say another state outside of North Carolina. I love the mountains. You're not too far from the mountains. You're not too far from the beach. The winters aren't too brutal. These last couple of weeks may be an exception. The summers aren't normally too brutal.
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe if I had to pick another place, maybe Hawaii.
Okay. Yeah, that's a nice one.
I'm a beach person at heart. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started on our show here. Mistakes when choosing a financial advisor. We're going to uncover the critical mistakes many make when choosing a financial advisor. We're cutting through the noise to highlight what often goes wrong, from misplaced trust in big names to overlooking the fine print. This episode is your essential guide to avoiding those pitfalls and making informed decisions that align you with your financial goals. And Garrett, the first one we're going to talk about is somebody not understanding how the advisor gets paid.
Yeah. You know, this is something that should absolutely be in the back of your mind when, you know, starting a relationship with a financial advisor, financial planner. You know, and I would start this conversation off by saying that financial advisor or that financial planner should have a portion in whatever presentation they're giving to you that talks about exactly how they get paid. If you go through the first meeting or two and you're still kind of in the dark about that, definitely bring it up then.
Yes.
It should be a conversation that is easy for that advisor to have, and in about 5 to 10 minutes in black and white, they should be able to spell out to you what part of their services are paid by the client, or if there's any other sort of relationship that they may have with another financial institution that they're getting paid. And it should be a very easy conversation. And then at the end, if you're still left with questions, feel free to follow up.
You should.
Yeah. You absolutely should.
Just like asking your doctor a question. Yep. You should feel comfortable enough to ask.
Absolutely. And so, there's some advisors that get paid by interaction, how much they're trading for you.
Brokers.
Yep, brokers for sure. There's some advisors that get paid for just service of the accounts that they provide advice on.
Yeah, wrap accounts.
Wrap accounts, absolutely. So they should be pretty easy to distinguish exactly how they get paid and what your expectations of that relationship going forward should be.
Talk a little bit about what we do here at the Wealth Guardians when we bring up that subject.
Yeah, so we have if you go through our planning process, it's typically a 4-meeting process. We address that in the 3rd meeting very specifically in black and white, where we do an analysis of, combing through fees that they may already be paying in their existing portfolio, and then showing them a side-by-side comparison on, if they chose to pursue a relationship with us, exactly what accounts would be paid to us for advisory services. We also cover services that we provide that we charge absolutely nothing for. And so it's a pretty easy conversation that we cover in about 10 minutes. At the end of it, they get a full financial plan that they're ready to consider, as well as understanding, on their own 2 feet, what fees they would be paying us if they decided to go with us for their financial services.
I don't encounter somebody that we go through the planning process with who does not feel like they're better informed about what kind of fees are out there, whether they're mutual fund fees or hidden fees or cash drag or money manager fees or advisor fees, broker fees. We go over in that 2nd meeting a description of all the different types of fees that exist out there.
Exactly.
And then we go into, after analyzing their current portfolio, we break down the fees that they are paying. And I very rarely come across somebody who says, yes, I was familiar with all of this exactly as you spelled it out.
Yeah.
99% of the time, somebody says, okay, I wasn't aware of that. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah. And just as you said, we start off by talking to them about what the fees are that they're facing in their current portfolio. Yeah. And then when we make recommendations for how to reallocate that portfolio to better serve their goals and their whatever it is they're trying to accomplish in retirement, we break out that same report with the fees on our
for ourselves.
For ourselves. Yeah. So they've got a beautiful side-by-side comparison there. And almost always, I guess I won't say always, but almost always, we've lowered those fees to some degree or another. Sometimes it's a little bit, sometimes it's quite significant. And so if you don't know what kind of fees you're paying out there and your current advisor setup, I would encourage you, that's one thing that you would agree, I think, that you want to know, that you should know. So if you want to come in and sit down with the Wealth Guardians, we don't charge for our 4-meeting planning process. So there's one of our fees. Yeah. There isn't one, right? Right. So the whole planning process, and a lot of advisors do charge quite a bit for that to go through that planning process, but we don't charge here. And if you want to sit down with us and understand not just about fees, but about tax mitigation strategies, portfolio allocation strategies, Social Security filing strategies, pension filing strategies, all of that we incorporate into our planning process. Give us a call at 336-391-3409. That's 336-391-3409. We'd be happy to sit down with you and see what kind of services and planning we can provide you to help you accomplish your retirement goals. Okay, Garrett, we've got enough time for a second one here. The second mistake that somebody makes is nodding and smiling instead of asking for clarification on things you don't understand.
Yeah, and I think this is part of just kind of human behavior when, admittedly, at least in our 4-meeting planning process, we know this is a ton of information that's getting thrown.
Right.
And depending on your level of familiarity with finances, some of the terminology you may not be familiar with, or some of it may go over your head. Honestly, we may be speaking too fast in some cases. If there's something that you're unsure of or need clarification on, just take 30 seconds to pause the advisor and ask them to explain a little bit more detail. Hey, what were you talking about in this particular subject? I'd like a little bit more clarity. If anything, it makes the conversation more engaging.
Yes.
And the financial advisor typically likes to talk about those things. And so, at least here at the Wealth Guardians, we view almost more than half of our job is education. Educating you around your accounts, what's inside of them, what potential they may have, if there's a bit of a gray area or something you don't understand, please pause and ask. We're more than happy to answer the question, because at the end of the meeting, we want you to go out with more information, more knowledge than you came in with. And that's the whole name of the game.
Yeah, I want somebody, if they're deciding, okay, I've gone through the planning process, now it's time for me to decide whether or not I want to implement the plan, become a client of the Wealth Guardians. I want my clients or the people who've gone through the planning process to make that decision based on understanding what it is we've gone through, not just say, well, they sound like they know what they're talking about. They've got good reviews out there, so I'm going to go ahead and go with them. I'd rather make that decision based on, I've understood everything that they've told me, or most everything that they've told me. It makes sense, and I like the outcome of what they're telling me. That's why I'm going to sign up with the Wealth Guardians.
Absolutely.
All right, very good. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this first segment. Of course, we've got to do the trivia question here. So, Garrett, let's go ahead and get started on this.
All right.
Are you a fan of old classic war movies at all, since you were in the Navy?
Depends on how old and how classic, but yeah.
Have you ever heard of or seen the movie Bridge Over the River Kwai?
No and no.
Okay. It's a famous movie, a World War II movie. Okay. And there is a song that becomes synonymous with the bridge over the River Kwai. Okay. If you don't know that song, I will give you a hint when we come back from the break. But is that song Stars and Stripes Forever, the Colonel Bogey March, Sharpshooter's March, or Enter the Gladiators? All right. Which song became synonymous with the bridge over the River Kwai? All right, well, stick around for the answer to that trivia question and see if we stumped Garrett on the other side of this short break. This is Brice Payne. With me is Garrett Ray. The show is the Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. And this is News Talk 94.5 WPTI. And this is 96.7 FM WTOB. News Talk 94.5 WPTI. 96.7 FM WTOB. Welcome back to the Wealth Guardian Show, where we help you retire the job and keep the paycheck. I'm Brice Payne in the Wealth Guardian studio this weekend morning, along with Garrett Ray. And in the second segment, we're going to continue our discussion about mistakes people make when choosing a financial advisor. Now, before we answer that trivia question that we left you and Garrett hanging with, we want to ask you a couple of questions first. Number one, are you planning to retire in the near future? 2, have you met with a retirement income certified professional who is a fiduciary? If not, I want to invite you to take us up on a complimentary review of your current situation. As certified retirement planning specialists, we're going to put together a customized written plan with strategies for portfolio allocation, income distribution, Social Security filing, and tax efficiency, with the additional benefit of often reducing both the risk and fees of your current plan. So if you put aside at least $400,000 and you want to take us up on this no-cost, no-obligation review, I want you to give us a call. Here's our number, 336-391-3409. I'll repeat that for you, 336-391-3409. You can also visit us at our website, thewealthguardians.com. That's thewealthguardians.com to learn more. Let us show you in black and white how to retire the job and keep that paycheck. Okay, let's go ahead and get to the trivia question here, Garrett. I asked you in the first segment if you are familiar with old classic war movies. You said some of them. I asked if you were familiar with the Bridge Over the River Kwai, or Bridge on the River Kwai. You weren't. You hadn't seen that particular one. But the question is, which song became synonymous with the Bridge on the River Kwai? Was it Stars and Stripes Forever, the Colonel Bogey March, Sharpshooter's March, or Enter the Gladiators? I think you don't know this, so you're going to take a blind stab at it here. And what do you say?
I'm going to say option B, the Colonel Bogey March. Okay.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. How did you come to that conclusion?
Well, I figured the bridge over the River Kwai had to involve some significant event that likely involved this particular colonel, so it's probably a tale around his unit, his brigade, and that was a complete stab in the dark.
Do you know that song?
I do not.
Okay. Have you ever watched Breakfast Club?
No, I don't think so.
You haven't watched Breakfast Club? Well, I was in a marching band, so I love this song, but I'll just whistle a bar here, and I'm sure you will be familiar with it.
Okay. Oh, of course.
There you go. That's the Colonel Bogey March. Okay. That was the prisoners, that was their song to keep them humming, to keep them motivated, yes, and inspired throughout that whole movie. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get back to our subject here, mistakes when choosing a financial advisor. I can tell you, Garrett doesn't seem to make a mistake when taking a blind stab at a trivia question on this show. We really have a hard time stumping him here. All right, well, the next one we're going to talk about here is not covering expectations for communication, style, and frequency. I'll start this one off. I take my mother to certain doctor's appointments, and her eye doctor is incredibly well-spoken and articulate when it comes to explaining to his patients what it is he's going to set out. He first sets out, this is what we're going to be talking about for the next 10 minutes. He almost like puts bullet points ahead of time. I love it. And then he goes through at the right pace with the right lingo, the right, doesn't try to surprise anybody or wow anybody with what he knows. And in the end, he kind of summarizes it. And I love the way, I love going to my mom's eye appointments just so I can listen to this guy speak. If I feel like I learned something, it's like, that's really well how he does that. I need to incorporate that in the way that I sit down and talk with my clients. Folks, communication, just like with your doctor, communication with your financial planner is paramount in you feeling confident about your retirement plan. I wouldn't anyway, just want to turn over my lifelong savings to somebody and keep my fingers crossed that they know what they're doing with it, because I can't really figure out all the things that are going on with that plan or what it is they're trying to tell me or whatnot.
Yeah.
I really take pride in our here at the Wealth Guardians strategy and emphasis on good communication with our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, when you got that high level of a relationship, in the severity and the seriousness around that relationship, it's not something that we take lightly here at all. If you have ever trusted your personal care to a doctor under a relatively high stakes scenario, you understand what that feels like. And while we're not in the medical field, we understand that planning for your retirement, planning for your family's future is a huge endeavor. And it's something that we take incredibly seriously. And so one of the things that we always want to make sure with our clients is expectations around when they're going to hear from us, what that regular cadence year over year looks like, making sure that we're strict about our annual review process, addressing any life events that may come along the way. And then we do some other things. If there's a significant move in the markets, we communicate out to our clients just in a general, hey, we're monitoring this situation. We're looking to see how we can best position you guys to navigate this time. And so there's other communications that go out throughout the year that help keep us in tune with what our clients are thinking and what they're going through.
And I would encourage, and that was all well said, Garrett, just based on our topic that we're talking about here, good communication. That was well said. I would encourage any of you who are sitting down with a financial planner, or, for that matter, any other professional conversation that you're having with anybody, share with them what your expectations are. And maybe that person might, if they're honest, they'll come to you and say, you know what, that's really not something that we can do or that we can meet. I don't think that we can meet your expectation if that's what it is. That would be great if they told you that, right? But you would want to know that up front. And hopefully maybe you can walk out of that process having articulated, this is what I expect from my financial planner. And if the financial planner comes back and says, you know what, that's great, that's exactly what we do, that is not out of line for your expectations, then you've kind of got a little bit more idea that, maybe this really is going to be a good fit. If they kind of hum and haw and say, well, it's not really the way we do things here, I think this is all you should expect, well, then you can just process that and decide whether or not that response was what you were looking for. Do you still feel comfortable going with them? Or maybe you want to keep looking for another financial planner that'll have a better response to what your expectations are.
Absolutely.
All right. Very good. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Wealth Guardian Show, and Garrett and Brice here are talking about mistakes people make when choosing a financial advisor. We've gone through a number of them here, and I think we've got time for just a few more. Garrett, the next mistake that I see people make is not checking credentials or the advisor's background.
Yeah, you want to do at least a cursory kind of search on that financial advisor. What's his or her work experience? How long have they been in the field? If you're looking or considering a firm where there's a team of advisors, is there a diverse background of experiences? And so that's one of the things when I think about our particular practice. We've got 3 main advisors here. Doug has 38 years in the business. Bryce, I think you're pushing up on 15 now.
Yeah, 14, yeah.
14, 15. I'm the new guy on the block here with about 3 years of experience. But collectively together, do they have the bases covered? And, is the relationship one where you're working with an advisory team? Does that advisor have his or her own book of business where even though there may be an advisor affiliated with the practice, you're not really speaking to anyone else except your main advisor? So just understand those relationships. Every practice is a little bit different, and you absolutely, as a client, have a right to ask, hey, what's your background? What are your credentials? Do you have any special qualifications that could help distinguish them? Some of their relationships, maybe they've got, a estate planning background, or they have an expertise in long-term care. We here have an expertise in, Social Security and helping clients navigate that.
Got those credentials? Yeah.
Absolutely. So just ask those different things and kind of just get little nuggets of information about that advisor and see if that's a fit for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You would want to know what degrees your doctors have. You should want to know what degrees or certifications or credentials that your financial planners have as well. Remember, anybody can call themselves an advisor. There is no rule out there that this person can use the term advisor and this person can't, kind of like a consultant.
Yeah.
You can decide whether or not your consultant can call yourself a consultant. Yeah. A lot of people out there are brokers, but they refer to themselves as advisors. A lot of people out there are insurance agents and refer to themselves as advisors. That's not against the rules. But we here at the Wealth Guardians are FINRA licensed advisors.
Right.
And with that comes a lot of regulatory scrutiny that goes on top of us, a lot of it. Thank you, Bernie Madoff. And it is important that, whenever we make a recommendation to a client, we have to show them certain FINRA documents at that moment, and which spells out, here's the licenses that we have, here's what we're qualified to talk about, here's what we are not qualified to talk about.
Absolutely.
And here's our background. Here's how many years we've been in the field. Has there ever been any disciplinary action against it? You can look these things up, and we encourage you to. So that's another mistake that we see happening. I think we've got time for one more quick one here, Garrett, and it is people don't request examples of success stories or references. Now, this is an interesting one.
It is an interesting one. So you had just gotten done mentioning, Brice, the scrutiny of our licenses and what we are allowed to do and not allowed to do when it comes to advertising to potential clients or prospects. One of them is actually this, where there is something that says we are not allowed to cite specific testimonials.
That's right.
Of a client's experience. So basically that's saying one client's experience may not necessarily be your experience. And so while we do pride ourselves in having a great Wealth Guardians community, and we serve, several hundred households throughout the Triad and in kind of the greater North Carolina area, that's about the extent that we can tell you as far as specific client experiences.
The way the regulations are now, anyway.
Yeah. Yes, as far as what we can advertise. Now, we heavily encourage, people getting to meet other clients and getting to talk kind of one-on-one with them and kind of do some of that networking type experience on their own.
But that's not us pushing a specific testimonial or referral their way. And you can understand why that might be in our field. And I'll just spell that out for you in case you're wondering, well, that seems weird. Imagine an advisor or somebody in any field who's kind of creating these or paying somebody for a testimonial. It's like all these ads that you see, oh, I'm taking this medication, it works great. Well, is this person really taking that medication, or are they a paid actor? We could, if there wasn't that regulation in place, you could hear the greatest things in the world about this advisor over here or this advisor over here, and it's completely fabricated. So you wouldn't really know. You'd think, well, this person clearly has a lot of positive experience with people out there, and it might be completely fabricated. So that is why that regulation is in place. All right. Well, you know what, Garrett? That's out of time.
I know. It's always been fun.
We are out of time. Let me give you our phone number one more time. If you'd like to sit down and work with the Wealth Guardians and see what services and planning we can provide you in preparing for your retirement, 336-391-3409. That's 336-391-3409. You can also reach us at thewealthguardians.com. I do hope that the rest of your weekend is everything that you want it to be. This is Brice Payne along with Garrett Ray. The show is The Wealth Guardians, helping you retire the job and keep the paycheck. Please remember, sound financial plans do not create themselves. This is News Talk 94.5 WPTI. This is 96.7 FM WTOB.